Do you often find yourself overwhelmed when you're making music in your DAW because you have so many audio and MIDI tracks, maybe 50, maybe 100 tracks, and the whole thing starts to look like a mess and you can't even find stuff anymore? You waste a long time looking for that one synthesizer sound that's bothering you, and on top of that, your CPU can't handle the amount of plugins and effects you have loaded. If you do, maybe it's time to start grouping your tracks. In this video, I'll show you 7 reasons why grouping your tracks in Ableton Live will make your life so much easier, and in the end I'll show you how to do it in case you don't already know. Hey, how's it going? I'm Thales, a pop music producer, and grouping your tracks means taking the multiple audio outputs of different tracks and sending them to one special track to mix them together. So whenever it makes sense to process 2 or more tracks together, you can group them up. For example, I usually have a drums group with a bunch of drum tracks, a vocals group, a back vocals group with many back vocal tracks, instruments group, bass group if I have more than one bass layer, and so on. I even have groups inside of groups, like the snare group for all my snare layers inside of my drums group. Also my strings group inside of my instruments group. And I group my tracks for 7 reasons. Let's start with the most important reason and go one by one. Reason number 1, it saves me time. As a music producer, time saving is the most important thing. So if I have instruments that play a similar role in my arrangement, like guitar, pianos, synthesizers, I'll probably apply effects to those instruments together in almost every song I make. There's probably going to be a compressor that compresses just the drums, another compressor that compresses just those instruments I mentioned, then another compressor that compresses just the vocals. So if you notice that you'll be adding the same equalizer or whatever effect on a bunch of individual tracks, like making copies of that equalizer, why not just group them together and throw just one effect that applies to all of them at once? Makes sense, right? You can even use a single fader to adjust the levels of all those tracks together without changing their internal balance. For example, if you notice that the drums are too loud at some point, you can just lower your kick track, snare track, hi-hats track, cymbals track, all that with just one fader. That not only saves you time but also CPU. That's reason number 2. Your computer won't have to run multiple copies of an effect on several instruments. Instead, it will just run one instance of that effect, which will require less CPU power, and you'll be able to keep working at a smaller buffer size, which introduces less latency, so it's win-win. Reason number 3 is also very important and also overlooked: organization. If you have trouble finishing your tracks, it could simply be lack of organization. A messy project tires you up and discourages you from finishing. Look at this arrangement view with over 90 tracks. This can be scary. Managing lots of tracks can get overwhelming quick. If you don't have a system to stay organized, there's a big chance you'll find so many obstacles you give up and never finish what you started. Notice that when you group tracks, that allows you to fold and unfold, to hide and reveal the contents of the group, which helps a lot with staying organized. It saves visual space, and I definitely don't want to have all those 90 tracks on my screen at all times. Reason number 4 is a fantastic reason. If I had to present just one reason, this would be a good candidate: sound cohesiveness. You can make your instruments work together if you apply effects together. That helps with making them sound like they're one big wall of sound instead of many different elements that are disconnected. I know this is a common problem for beginners in music production. Sometimes their sounds seem to not work together like music, and that can be fixed by processing them as a group. You equalize instruments together, compress to glue them together. There's even a glue compressor in Ableton Live which serves this purpose very well. On top of that, you can send an entire group to a return track with just a single knob. And this can be used, for instance, to apply the same reverb to your drums, and that's guaranteed to make them sound like they belong together. Even if you handpicked samples from very different sample packs, you can still make them sound cohesive as a whole. If that's not enough for you, I still have 3 more reasons for grouping your tracks that will help you become a better producer today. But first, can you like this video? if you enjoy talking about all this stuff as much as I do. And ask me any question in the comments below, and maybe that'll be my next video. Alright? Reason number 5 for grouping your tracks is finding mix problems with ease. I know most of us have worked on a song that is starting to sound good, but then we'll play it back and suddenly we hear a weird noise. It doesn't sound right. We play the section again and hear the noise again, and we don't know where it's coming from. We have to delete it or change it somehow, but we have so many tracks we don't even know what that sound is. Are you going to solo each one of those 90 tracks individually until you find that weird sound so you can remove it? If you did a good job on grouping your tracks, you can just solo and listen to each group until you find the source of the problem in your mix. Then you can zoom in to figure out exactly which track is the culprit. That's another time saver. Reason number 6, grouping your tracks is also the perfect solution for quick sidechaining. Electronic music producers sidechain lots of instruments to the kick drum. If you don't know sidechaining, it's basically used to decrease the volume of whatever sound source whenever another sound happens. For example, when the kick hits, the bass gets ducked a few decibels, and that can keep them from clashing to a certain degree. Or you can use it to create that classic pump effect. I've been using a lot of sidechain compression on instruments to open up room for my vocals if they're in the same frequency range, so they don't compete for those frequencies. Since I make pop music, I just want the vocals to cut through everything else and get the spotlights. So I group instruments together, then I place a single multi-band compressor that ducks all those instruments whenever there's any singing, and that opens up so much room in the mix. Reason number 7 is exporting mastering stems. If you ever send your song for a mastering engineer to give it that final polishing and they ask for the stems, you're gonna want to group your tracks. You will export your groups as individual tracks, usually about 6 or so, like vocals, drums, bass, synthesizers, effects, all grouped up, instead of exporting those 90 individual tracks, or on the other hand, exporting just one master track where all the sounds are already summed up. That's because some mastering engineers like to have more freedom when mastering your songs, so they can make adjustments that affect only the drums or the vocals, for example, instead of affecting the whole mix. So grouping is the perfect solution for exporting stems. So how do you group tracks in Ableton Live? It's simple. Just select the tracks you want to group, and you can select multiple tracks by clicking on the track and then holding Shift while you select the adjacent tracks, or you can hold Control on a Windows or Command on a Mac while you click on the individual tracks you want to group together. Then you can either hit Control G on a Windows or Command G on a Mac to actually create the group. You can also right click it and select Group Tracks. Make sure to rename the group to something that makes sense for you. Color coding also helps with organization. Notice that you can see the name of the group in the outs of the individual tracks. That means the output of the track has been changed to the group track. And you can still add tracks to that group afterwards or remove them, just drag and drop. Some people ask, is there a difference in using groups or just having your instruments like kicks, snares and hi-hats in one track? And yes, there's a difference. I like to have each instrument in their own separate track because that gives me more freedom to process them individually, like easily sending individual sounds to return tracks if needed, while still allowing me to group them up and process them together. So it's the best of both worlds. By the way, groups in Ableton Live are what people used to call bus, or people that use different DAWs still have the bus system. Groups are the Ableton Live's bus system, but in my opinion, in a smart way. It's simple and intuitive. You don't have to configure a lot of routing. You just group the tracks together with a shortcut. So now you know the 7 reasons why grouping tracks in Ableton Live made me a better producer. I hope you're taking advantage of grouping your tracks from now on too. Hey, did you learn anything today? Did you enjoy this video? How I presented this stuff for you? Can you subscribe to the channel and turn on the notifications so you stay in the loop and get to see the next videos? I'll go ahead and put on your screen my 2 guesses of the videos you'd like to watch next. Let's see if I'm right. Sound good? Then thanks for hanging out with me. I'm Thales and we'll talk soon.